In this video I'm going to show you how you can create a games menu that you can call from any of your other events. So it gives your users the option to go into the menu and play any of the games on that menu. Now the way to do this is to create an information event, and that's done by going to the Create panel, choosing Create an Information Event, clicking Next. That takes you into the wizard. Now I'm not going to go into details here, I'm just going to zip through this quickly. Next, next. I'm happy with that. The language is English. It's not important about webcams and cameras for an information event, so I'm just going to go next. Okay, let's see what we've got here. So into the editor, and you can see that RightBooth has created an event with just the start screen and this label item. So I'm going to make the start screen the menu for playing the games. So I'm going to change this to say, please select a game. Right. So what I want to do is to add some images on here which are links to other pages in this event that have got the games on them. So I need to find some games. Now I've got the web browser open at the moment at this website, which is h5games.online/catalog.php. And there are lots of places to find games on the internet. I just keep coming back to this page because it's got some really good games that are suitable for adding into RightBooth. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a new feature here in the latest version of RightBooth, which lets you grab screenshots and paste images into event screens. So I'm going to take a screenshot of some of these games. I'm going to actually add 3 games to RightBooth. I'm going to add the Peg Solitaire, the Sliding Bricks, and this Hungry Lily. So how do I get these images into RightBooth to use as links on the start screen? Well, what I'm going to do now is press the print screen key on my keyboard. I've done that, and what that's done is taken a copy of the screen and put it into the Windows clipboard. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run Microsoft Paint. That's this. And now if I click the paste option, it's pasted the screenshot into Microsoft Paint. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select parts of this and paste them into RightBooth. So using the select option, I'm going to start with this one and just highlight it. So I've dragged a rectangle around the area that I want. I now say copy. I'm now going to task switch back to RightBooth, and in here, if I right click on the screen, I can, using this new option, create paste clipboard image. I'm just going to click this. Now RightBooth asks me to name the actual image, so I'm going to call it Game 1 and save it as a PNG file, and it's saving it in the RightBooth library under Images General. Now I have to do this, I have to save the image first before it pastes into RightBooth, so that RightBooth has got a link to the external image file. So let's just click save and you'll see what happens. It's pasted this image in, and that image is now referencing the games1.png file that I've just created in my media library. Now let me go back to Paint. This time I'm going to select the Peg Solitaire. So again I'm going to use the select tool, drag a rectangle around Peg Solitaire, copy, task switch back to RightBooth, right click, paste clipboard image. This time I'm going to call it Game 2. Make sure you give it a new name, don't overwrite this one. And here's the Game 2. Task switch back to Paint, and I'm going for Hungry Lily. Drag a rectangle around it, copy, task switch back, right click, paste, call it game3.png. Right, so I've got the 3 game icons. Let's just put them into a reasonable position. Now, the next thing to do is to create 3 more screens where I can hold the games themselves. So you do that by clicking Add Items, Screen. I'll call this Game 1. Now notice it's added the game at the top here. I want to move it down below the start screen using Move Down the Screen list. I shall add another game screen, Game 2. I'll move it down to the bottom. Screen, a new screen, Game 3. And again, click it down here. So I've got the start screen and I've got 3 empty game screens. Back to the start screen, you can see that the start screen has got this background, and I'd quite like to have that background on all these screens as well. Now the way to do that is to go back to the start screen, use the formatter, and here you can see you've got an option to add the background to all screens. Click that, say yes. RightBooth makes the changes and it puts the background that's on this screen on all the other screens, and you can see there each of the 3 screens has got the same screen as the start screen. Okay, the next thing to do is to add the games themselves to each of these screens. So I'll start with Game 1. Now, Game 1 is, if I task switch back to the browser, Game 1 was this one, the sliding bricks. So if I play sliding bricks here, I'll just turn off the sound. This is the start to the sliding bricks. Now, if you look at this URL here, that's what I need when I add it to the RightBooth screen. So if I go back to here, Game 1, I'm going to add a web browser. And the content for this web browser, if I go back to the browser, is to take this. So I right click, copy, so I'm copying the URL to this game, task switch back to RightBooth, double click, select all this because I'm going to overwrite it, right click on it, paste. So that now puts in the sliding bricks game onto this page. Now as you can see, it's slightly less wide than the actual container area, so I'm just going to drag it down slightly to make it fit. That seems okay, and I'm going to make it slightly bigger as well. Okay, so that's the sliding bricks game. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this object. I'm going to go to Game 2. I'm going to paste the object in. So I've put a copy of the sliding bricks onto Game 2. I'm going to go to Game 3 and do the same. So I've now got the sliding bricks game on all 3 of these screens. However, the second game, Game 2, is this Peg Solitaire. So if I go back to the Game 2 screen, I'm going to overwrite this now with Peg Solitaire. So I go back to the browser, close this tab down, play the solitaire game, take this URL, copy it, task switch back to RightBooth, double click here, highlight this, right click on it and paste the new URL, and this time we get Peg Solitaire. Now it's not quite the right size, so I can size this out. Okay, Game 3. Now let me just go back to the start screen. Game 3 is Hungry Lily, so I'll go back to game 3. Task switch back to the browser. Shut this tab down. Play Hungry Lily. Now this is the URL for Hungry Lily. So I've highlighted it, right click, copy, task switch back to RightBooth, double click, highlight, right click and paste Hungry Lily. So we've got sliding bricks, peg solitaire and Hungry Lily. We now need to make the links. So select this one on the start screen, look at properties, and we're going to add a click action, which is to show a screen, and in here we'll type game 1. With this one we have a click action, show screen, and we put game 2, and this one is show screen, click in here, game 3. Now we need a way to get back from these screens back to the start screen. So I'm going to add a button on these screens which is back. So I'm on game 1 screen, I'm looking at the screen properties and I click the back checkbox, which gives me an option to go back to the start screen. I'm going to put that down there. Go to game 2, same thing, select the back option, select both of these, drag it down here. Game 3, same again, down here. I'm just going to come back to the start screen. Okay, what I need to do now is probably save my work, so let's just exit. I'm going to save this event as, I'll call it game or games, and let's try playing it and see what happens. Click the play button. So if I click this icon, it takes me to sliding bricks and I can start playing it. I can now click back, go back to the menu, try peg solitaire, back, and Hungry Lily. And so on. So that was how to create a games menu. What I'll show you now is how you can actually make use of this games menu from any of your other events. So what I'm going to do is, back to the editor on the start screen, I'm going to look at properties and I'm going to add another back button. Let me come back out of here and click save. So my games menu now has a back button on it. Right, let's open up another event. I'll go for event 2. Now I've not got a camera connected at the moment, but you can see this is a standard recording event that's got a record video option and take 3 photos option. So it's a standard one, get ready, 3, 2, 1, speak now, etc. What I want to do though is add another button on here to link to the games menu. So let's do that. So we click edit, add items, button. Let's put it up here. I'm also going to add a label item and I'll call that games. Just size it down a bit. So this is now next to the button for linking to the games menu. So really all I need to do now is give these 2 options, these 2 items, an action to link to the games event. So go for properties on the button. The action the click action for the button is play event. Click in here and I choose my games event, which is down here. I need to do the same for the label as well, just in case somebody clicks on this. So the click action for the label again is to play event, and same thing, games. If I come back out, I'll save this event and I'm going to play it. So I'm playing the recording event. So rather than record a video or take 3 photos, I'll play some games. Clicking this button here will run the games event that I created earlier, so I can play a game. I can then go back to the games menu, and then if I click the back button on the games menu, it'll take me back to event 2. And as you can see, I'm back at event 2. So the point here is that by adding a back button to this event, you can then reference that event from any other event that you have. So it's very easy to link events together by having the play event action added to certain screens and the back button on the other events to take you back. So it's quite a flexible solution here of being able to link events together, and obviously in this example you can then make use of your games menu from any of the other events that you create. Okay, one thing I forgot to mention about the web browser, and I'll explain it here. First of all, let me just change the background color to grey so that you can see the game in the web browser item. If you notice here, it's cropping off slightly, and it doesn't matter how much, well, it's quite difficult to get this scaled correctly. If you notice that down this side there's a black bar, and then down this side there isn't. As I drag it closer, I start cropping off the right hand side. Now the reason that's happening is if I look at the properties for this web browser item, if you look down here, by default web browser items in RightBooth do not have scroll bar settings turned on. Now if I turn on scroll bars with this one, you will see now that this fits in much better, but there are still no scroll bars, and the reason for that is that we're actually looking at an embedded HTML5 game that doesn't require scroll bars. The reason for this is that if you put a web browser item on that has scrollable options and you don't want them to scroll, you can turn off the scroll bars. So in other words, RightBooth will clip this slightly to hide the scroll bars. But in the case of this sliding bricks game, you need to turn this back on. I think effectively what you should just try and remember is that the scroll bar option here can clip the right hand and bottom edges of the web browser, so it may require to be on or it may not. It depends on the game or the content. So if I go onto this screen, for instance, you can see up here that it's cropping that button up there. If I click this, you can see that the scroll bar setting is off. If I turn it on, watch what happens up to this top right hand corner here. So I'm going to click it now, and now this fits in properly. So just to recap again, you just keep an eye on the scroll bars setting. You can just try it on and off and see which is the best fit for the content in the browser.